Welcome to the future, you guys. Hello, beautiful people. We are live today on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and we got something super special in store for you guys today. Jonah's on the show today. We're going to do a Photoshop demo. He's going to do some incredible things, but before we do that, I just want to say happy Thursday to all you guys. Molly, Erica, how you guys doing?
Chris, I'm doing great. Happy Thursday to you.
It's good to see you, Molly.
Good to see you, Chris.
Erica, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right, so you guys will be monitoring the comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, because I'm sure Jonah's going to have some questions for you guys and prompts and things like that. It's going to be a highly interactive show. And in case you guys don't know who Jonah Lobe is, let's cut to my deck. Here we go. This is Mr. Jonah Lobe. He's a concept artist, character artist, illustrator, just artist, all-around good guy. He's gracious enough to join us on the show today from Brooklyn, New York. Super happy to have him here. And I'm going to show you a little bit of his work to kind of whet your appetite. Here we go. Check this out. What happened to the screen? There we are. Stay on the screen. Thank you very much. So you guys know that one of my favorite games is Skyrim. I've given many hours, maybe weeks of my life, maybe months even. I don't know. So I was just thrilled that a mutual friend, Tony Lopez, introduced us, got us connected, and lo and behold, here we are. We're talking to Mr. Jonah Lobe himself. Here's some of the artwork that he's created. I pulled this from his site. Some awesome work. And of course, the dragons. The dragons. Now I think I'm going to ask him some questions about how he got his start in Bethesda, what he did there, and how he's transitioned and what he's doing with his career. So all of you guys are interested in this line of work, you definitely want to stick around and join that conversation. Some beautiful models here. Molly.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me of Game of Thrones.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I feel like there's some references here that are shared, but I don't know. I don't know about the whole origin of Skyrim, but it does feel eerily similar.
Yes, it does.
Amazing work, guys.
It is.
Now, the reason why I'm showing you all this armor is because I'm going to challenge Jonah to design an armor in the style of Skyrim. So this is going to be amazing. We're not going to jump to that yet. Okay, guys, come back to me. All right.
It didn't.
We're a little bit sticky on the enter key. That's totally
Yeah.
cool. It's totally cool. It's Thursday. Everything's good. Let's roll the titles and talk to Mr. Jonah Lobe in 1 second. All right. Jonah, welcome to the show. How you doing? Can you unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted, I believe, right?
Yes, you are, sir.
All right. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you guys.
All right. So there's a lot of fans, I think, that are excited to talk to you and kind of see what's in store for us. So I have a couple of questions. I want to talk a little bit about your story, your arc, your career, how you got started. Can we go into that a little bit?
Sure. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. I've always liked art. I've always loved monsters. I don't know. I didn't know exactly how I was going to make it happen, but I knew that monsters and creature design and special effects of that kind was going to be somewhere in my future, and I just had to figure out how. So I landed a job actually after college at Bethesda Softworks, which I think maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of your fans may have heard about, and I was there for 7 years, and they were really good years. They were super fun. And while I was there, I was a character artist. Mm-hmm. And that means that most of my job was to take the concepts from the concept artist, who at the time was a man named Adam Adamowicz, who's genius. For anybody out there who's a fan of Fallout 3, Adam did 100% of the concepts for that game. So my job was to take those concepts, talk to the art director, talk to the concept artist, and then create the actual creatures, the actual items, the actual armors, what have you, in 3D, texture them, and get them prepped and ready. So yeah, so if you're a fan of Oblivion, Shivering Isles, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Skyrim, yeah, I got a lot of stuff in there, a lot of creatures. You've probably been killed by my creatures a couple times, and you probably killed a couple hundred. And Chris, in your case, probably killed a couple thousand.
Yeah, so. I think your creatures have haunted me into the night. I've run around many rocks, bushes, and trees trying to heal up, throwing potions on myself and enchantments and all that kind of stuff, just trying to survive. But I have to tell you, I'm a very powerful dark elf now or something like that. Very powerful. I can just destroy people by looking at them these days. Okay, so that's awesome. So what kind of software or tools did you use in those early days at Bethesda?
Great question. So early on in Bethesda, I started with 3D Studio Max, and I think, in fact, I believe that was what we used kind of throughout. Required a little bit of retooling on my end. I used Maya's Autodesk, or Autodesk's Maya.
Yeah, something like that.
And I worked with Photoshop a lot for texturing, and then for all the refined detail work, of which I'm kind of a little maniacal about, I use ZBrush. And that's kind of like a digital sculpting program. And I think probably if it weren't for ZBrush, I don't know if I'd even have gotten into the industry, because I'm very artistically, design-driven individual. I'm not a technical individual, and I'm not a problem solver. ZBrush was, to me, the smoothest transition from all the things I thought about art or sculpting, what have you, and putting it onto the computer, and being able to use a pressure-sensitive tablet while doing that really gave it that kind of, gave me a much more tactile approach, as opposed to clicking around with a mouse and trying to give things subtlety in life. Darn near impossible. So yeah, those are the main ones. And then these days, I still use a lot of the same softwares, but for texturing, instead of Photoshop, I'm using Substance Painter.
Wait, what program?
Instead of a texturing program, instead of Photoshop for texturing, I use Substance Painter.
Substance Painter.
Which is basically, yeah, it's a 3D. You basically start painting on the model directly that you're on, and maybe later on I can give you a peek of what that looks like. But it's cool because you're not just painting colors; you're painting surface properties. So you're painting, how metallic is this surface? What kind of shine does this surface have? How does it interact with light? It's very cool. It's super cool and a lot of fun and a lot more intuitive than back in the days when I would try to texture something that was 3-dimensional on a 2-dimensional plane in Photoshop.
Okay, that's a program I've never heard of before, so that'd be very interesting. So perhaps if we're lucky, if time permits, in the next hour and a half that we have together, maybe we can take a peek at that just so that people kind of know what's up with that. Now, I just want to let you guys know, I looked you up on your Twitch stream, so let's let everybody know, how can they find you on Twitch? Because you broadcast all the time, right?
I used to. I would like to pick it up more, but these days I'm a little ground under with contract work and some own private projects. I fully intend to make a triumphant return in full force in the next couple of months, or certainly the next year or two, because I have some ideas for how I want to spend my time online doing that. But yeah, I did it for I streamed for a couple of years. I'm still on there occasionally. I loved, it started off. For those who want to find me, by the way, it's twitch.tv/Jonah Lobe. That's Lobe like earlobe. And I started off on there to try to promote an independent video game project that I was working on. And then I moved from there to game design and 3D modeling and texturing to try to, again, share the knowledge that I had with just the general public. I'm a big believer in free education and free learning.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the internet totally changes the paradigm completely. And so what I really love about streaming and which is part of the reason I really want to get back into it, is that there's no barrier to entry, and the people that I'm able to reach and speak to and interact with and give my knowledge to could be down the street, or they could be in the Ukraine or Ethiopia or Puerto Rico, wherever. And that to me it's a really beautiful thing, and I really hope that kind of thing continues, and I expect that it will. Yeah, or Puerto Rico, wherever.
Great. I'm monitoring some comments here, so hopefully I can figure out how to do this while we're talking. So why don't we do this? Let's jump into the work, and if you don't mind, because I know you're good at this, that you can paint, model, texture, and talk at the same time, since you're so used to doing these Twitch streams. So I'd like to just have you do the work, and then we can continue the conversation. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. We can dive in. I'm happy to just to start doing some illustrations and start interacting. So if anybody out there has comments or thoughts or questions or suggestions, throw them my way. I won't be looking at the Twitch channel myself, but I got you, my best man, on the job, and so that sounds like that would work for me.
Okay.
So here, I will share my screen. Oh, you know what? Actually, just because there's so many fans of the franchises out here, I wanted to share with you really quickly.
Some artwork, maybe?
Some artwork and some 3D artwork.
Great.
Because that's always super fun. All right, are you able to see this?
Yeah.
All right, so for anyone who's a fan of Fallout 4, this is the Mirror King. This is a program called Marmoset, which is just basically a rendering program. But for those who are just curious about my kind of character art pipeline and my creature art pipeline, a lot of it comes down to referencing real creatures in the real world and trying to kind of come up with new ways for them to be built, new ways for them to be designed, and especially in combining human and animal anatomy. It's a super fun process for me as well. This is for you, Chris, if you're into Skyrim.
Oh yeah.
You probably fought a couple of those in your time. These guys were a lot of fun to do. They were super fun. To create this beaten metal look, this ancient kind of Iron Age look, was a lot of fun. And to create the mummies themselves was super, super fun, because I just got to kind of create these beef jerky creatures that were, and the concept art for this, again, by that guy, Adam Adamowicz, was just so fun to work with, because it's kind of a combination of realism, aka in this case, a dead person, but with kind of a much more artistic design. So the flow of the skin, the ribs, that kind of thing. This is not, and I mentioned this just because you guys are design centric. This is not how human anatomy actually works at all, but it was kind of a cheat. The way the striations here come down the sides, and it's kind of a cheat to kind of take something that is normal but give it a more unique design. So that kind of stuff is fun. I can show off a few more models, but also I think maybe we should probably jump in. But while we're here, I'll show you Alduin. I got to go to E3 the year Skyrim was released, and they built a life-size Alduin, which was really fun. And then just literally, I was on the treadmill just like a month ago, and the ad for the Skyrim VR came on, and Alduin is heavily featured, and I was like, wow, I can't believe nobody even told me that this was going to happen. But yeah, so there's a couple of things, and if people want, I can show later. I can show more later. But
great. So I have a question about these models. I believe when we were talking before we went on air, you mentioned like you were kind of working in that lower position, building these models, and you've evolved way beyond that. In the case of these characters that you're showing us, did somebody give you, did the concept artist that was driving this give you something, or did you just make this from nothing?
So it's always a mix, right? And that was something that I really appreciated about the process of working at Bethesda. So in the case of someone like Alduin or the Draugr, or a great many of the creatures, there's anywhere from 1 to 30 illustrations that are given to me. And these illustrations were a mix of loose sketches or fully, rendered paintings. And what I would do is I would take that, I'm somebody who appreciates autonomy, who really wants space of my own to do my own thing, right? But then of course you have to balance that, because when you're at a game company, you're part of a team, and you are ultimately creating a project that is in service to a larger, more unified vision that doesn't wholly belong to you. So to make sure that I was kind of in that sweet spot where I was satisfying my own creative itch, while also trying to realize the vision of the concept artists, the lead designers, the art directors, the executive producer, Todd Howard, I would take the piece of concept art, I'd take it to the art director, and I'd say, tell me what you like most about this concept art, so that I make sure to follow that and not mess with that at all. And then I would also take it to the concept artist, because concept artists, and I think we'll probably talk about this a lot today, very creative people, very hard thinkers, and they really draw from a wide range of very unexpected references. So I would often take the piece of concept art that they made to them and say, what were you thinking? What were you referencing? Because you know, it's one thing. I think there's a desire on a lot of people who want to be artists part, that, you know, you want to just create what's in your head all the time, right? But ultimately, if we're not kind of intaking new ideas and taking in new concepts, new references, and kind of approaching things from an angle that we wouldn't otherwise approach, we're not going to grow. And so I would take a lot of those concept art pieces of concept art to the concept artist and say, you know, let me know what you were thinking about, because I need to have these original ideas rather than me sit down and do 100% my own take. Because I found that whenever there was foreign ideas given to me, my work was better and more original than it could have otherwise been if it was just me trying to make something up. So that's part of the reason I wanted today incorporate yourself and Molly and whoever else feels like joining in with questions or comments or suggestions. I would like for this to be a collaborative process, because I like when people throw me curveballs, and it definitely, I think the end results are usually more interesting than if I just went off on my own.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And if nobody says anything, I'm sure I will give you all the input you need for the armor that you're going to build for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
I'm sure
Bring
too.
it.
Yeah.
Bring it.
All right.
This is the basic. Can we see this?
Yes, we can.
All right. This is a really quick sketch I did beforehand, just to kind of define some anatomy, define a couple key lines that I thought would be fun to work with. And then we're going to go from here. And this muscled lass will be our kind of mannequin.
Okay.
And together I was hoping that we could create something cool and original. So with that said, I mean, I think we'll, given that this is a Skyrim-based concept, we'll probably start with something that resembles like a lot of leather, a lot of metal, and not particularly finely cast metal. I think something older looking would be fun. I'm also a big fan of antiquity, so that will find its way in there. And I also will probably be referencing a couple armors from real life.
Great.
As we go.
So inevitably, there's lots of questions always about the tools that you're using. I just want to get that out of the way so they don't keep asking. You're working in Photoshop right now. Are you on a PC?
I'm on a PC.
Okay.
I am indeed.
And you're using a Cintiq, right?
I'm using a Cintiq. It's like a 7-year-old Cintiq or something. I wish. I guess I could show you my setup really quickly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here we go. Yeah, if the camera will come this far. But this is where I'm working off, part of the dusty screen. This is my monitor. Hi, Molly.
Hi.
And yeah, and so this is where I'm working with. That's my mic.
Okay.
And proof that I'm wearing pants. Don't worry, anybody.
Well, I'm not, so that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
It's all right.
Well, now I
Perfect.
feel awkward.
Take off your
Like,
pants. Peer pressure. Okay. Very good. So you have a giant 7-year-old Cintiq. You know, we would love to get Wacom to sponsor us at one point, and that way we can send the guests a brand new Cintiq. That would be lovely.
That will happen.
I mean, listen, I would not complain.
Right.
That's for sure. Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to get started here.
Okay.
Just before you kind of start launching into questions, and just so people understand what I'm doing, I'm just going to fill in her basic silhouette with just a kind of a gray. And that's just going to help me define her silhouette and get a better understanding of the mass, the negative spaces that we're working with, et cetera. So just in case people are curious about this particular step.
Yeah. And it does look to me like you're using a stand-up desk, right?
I am.
Okay.
This is, I just got it actually.
Okay.
I like it. I think I've had some various like kind of, I'm an aging individual. I just turned 35 a little while ago, and I'm feeling it, man, feeling it. So I found that to kind of overcome that and to mitigate that issue, just being able to stand up, sit down, really helps. So perhaps at some point during this conversation, I will you know,
Sit down.
go back and forth.
Stand
Right.
up.
But I can project more when I'm standing. So, yeah.
Lucas is saying, I love this guy. Somebody else says, you're a boss. So there's a lot of loves, a lot of happy faces and hearts flying your way right now.
Oh, thank you guys. If I could type, I would send you guys 1,000,000 hearts back. Thank you guys. And thank you, by the way, to you guys for having me on the show. And thank you to everybody who's watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your days to come join us today and mess around with me and to offer your suggestions or your thoughts or whatever.
Yes.
So right now, what I'm seeing Jonah do is he's got 3 layers. He's got a base white layer and an initial sketch and the intermediate layer. And the layer that he's painting on right now, I can tell that it's on multiply. So it's going to just darken the image underneath it. And he's just laying down some gray tone right now.
I tend to work very kind of fast and loose. I get really, especially when I'm doing painting, because I don't do so much painting kind of professionally these days. A lot of it is personal. A lot of it is me trying to kind of grow. Chris, you and I were talking about that a little bit before the stream. And I find that, so I kind of work a little fast and loose, and that has drawbacks and that has advantages. So, with regards to the advantages, I'm a huge fan of working fast and loose because as somebody who kind of considers himself perpetual student of art and who's always kind of hungry for the next bit of knowledge, I find that the faster I can screw up and the faster I can kind of make mistakes, the faster I learn. And so I often tend to kind of work fast and loose and then encounter issues later on in the painting, often issues that are somewhat unresolvable. But it's okay to me because I think there's a lot of emphasis on portfolio building and on making pieces of art that are pretty, that are beautiful, that we can use to show off our talents and something we can feel proud of. But a couple of years ago, I guess more than a couple of years ago, I would say 6 or 7 years ago, I began to feel like I'm going to switch this layer and put it underneath that one and then darken that a bit. I began to realize that I wasn't producing as much art as I would like because I was a little paralyzed of the blank page. So the idea of the pressures that seemed to come along with creating art that would look good meant that every single time I started a new sketchbook page or a new painting, there was this pressure to perform and to create something that was, this has got to be amazing. If anyone sees it, it's got to be beautiful. And I realized that was actually holding me back from actually doing artwork. So a couple of years ago, I just started committing myself to the idea of kind of making lots of bad art and just kind of diving in and not really worrying about it, because I really feel like we have to let go of that initial fear of failure if we really want to grow and we want to get better. So that's something that I'm a kind of a firm believer in, and I would encourage your viewers to do the same. Don't worry too much about what other people are thinking, and don't worry too much about creating something amazing and gorgeous. Really, just dive into the process of learning and kind of don't be afraid. I did this thing where I basically started buying sketchbooks with the sole intention of making bad art, filling the pages with art that I did not like, because every piece of crappy art was an opportunity for growth. And what I found ultimately throughout this whole kind of bad art endeavor was that I created about 3 times or 4 times more art than I ever did before. And thus I began to learn much faster than I ever had. So
Love it.
If there's anything I can, say,
I love that.
Encourage people or kind of give reason to create and be proud of your bad art, it's because, art isn't meant to be cherished, polished, hung in a static place and admired. In my mind, art really is about a constant exploration and a constant commitment to study. So every one of those sketchbooks I have, none of which I show to anybody, it's it's a project that you dive into and then you extract knowledge from, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So we got a couple of comments here while you're working here. Kay O'Carroll is saying, Jonah, your sketches are always so clean. Do you just draw it that way, or do you clean it up for the stream?
My sketches are always so clean. God, I don't feel that way at all. I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, that's clean, huh? Wow.
It is really nice, though.
You know,
it is.
You know, you can see that I've drawn some lines for the face to try to block out the skull and to kind of frame the face. And then you can see where I've kind of erased it around the head. You know, I always draw heads too big. You know, I think her cranium went back here or something, like Alien or something. But I try to clean it up a little bit. I don't know. I don't have much of an answer for that. Just because I'm surprised that you think this work is clean.
Well, I guess the answer is no. This is how you work, and if you think it's clean, then great. You're not trying to do something special, different for the stream.
Yeah.
No, in fact, you know, some of my favorite streams that I've ever done were ones where I just kind of started from the very beginning. Here I'll go into, let's do quick access art. I'll show you just a couple of images here. There are ones where I started with nothing, and then I just prompted the audience to kind of start throwing ideas at me, start throwing concepts. You know, ones like this, where basically the idea was, you know, give me a shape, give me some animals, give me some basic color scheme or a mood to work with, and let's go for it. And so I find also that just starting and just diving in and can be a really gratifying experience.
I'm glad you did that. That got all the Christmas requests out of the way. That was kind of like a strange reindeer creature.
I like it. Owl, really cool. Like reindeer.
Owl reindeer combo, something like that.
So cute.
I want to read a comment here yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jonah.
Oh, no, I asked my followers, you know, what do I call this? And they said they called it, they settled on the Momotac. And I was like, that's a great name. That's a good name. So, yeah. If the painting's going well, then I want people to name it as well.
Great.
Help me out. You know?
So Rachel Fowler, thank you very much. She says, I work at a graphic design. She says, okay. I work as a graphic designer professionally at Fossil, but I love seeing content like this as well. Seeing an artist at work is my favorite way to spend my lunch break. Well, thanks for joining us for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Rachel, is it?
Yeah, Rachel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for coming. And I hope your lunch is delicious, and I hope this is entertaining to you.
So you can feed your body, we'll feed your mind.
Exactly. Wonderful.
So you're blocking out some... You're turning a two-dimensional sketch into a three-dimensional form by adding light and shadow and all that kind of stuff, right?
That's exactly right. So at the moment, I'm not too concerned with specifics. I'm kind of looking at the big shapes. I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees the other way because oftentimes we tend to draw either right-handed or left-handed manner, and our paintings or illustrations tend to become kind of lopsided without us recognizing that that's the case. I'm also going to go ahead here and probably just flatten this out because I'm a big fan of just, again, like if I make mistakes or if I have regrets, flattening things out really actually forces me to just kind of redraw it. And while that might be like a time sink, it's also a way for me to get better. Usually when we have to do the same thing twice, it usually comes out better the second time. So I'm just going to kind of go for it and just hope things don't turn out so terrible, you know? Wait, I feel like you just asked me a question and then I kind of talked about something else. You were asking me about, the values and the shading. That's exactly right. I'm trying to just do some basic carving out of forms just to kind of create some form of, some sense of mass, that kind of thing. Because that's going to help me with lighting, and also it'll give me some stronger sense of the three-dimensionality of this thing, because that's so much of a hurdle, right? I mean, the idea of taking a two-dimensional thing and making it look 3D is super hard, but, you know, exercising in good values, I don't mean like saying nice things to people. I mean, like, you know, going in there and trying to get the blacks and the whites and the darks and the lights kind of just balanced a bit more can definitely help in that carving out process. So I work big. I work with a big flat brush for the most part, and I just kind of make these overall changes. So the biggest areas right now will be her armpits, a little bit below her ribs. Her hips kind of are going to come out a little bit, so they're going to be actually a bit more lit back up. And so it'll be a while for me to kind of pull these forms forth. And that can be a little bit of a long process at times, but if done well, it's always worth it. And that's something that I've really internalized in just the last couple of years. So taking the time to nail down those values and getting those balanced a little bit at the outset can definitely save time in the long run, I think.
I have a quick question for you and a couple of comments coming in. The first question is, what resolution are you working at right now? What's the canvas size?
That's funny. I always get asked that, and I never, ever, from the outset, decide. So this currently is 3,225 by 4,000. If this is something that, if this ends up being a piece of art that I'll keep and I'll do things with, then I will go in there to image size and I'll up the resolution from 72 here to 300, which is print quality, right?
Right.
But because I'm not really output focused in terms of quality, and I'm much more focused on the experience of just doing it, I always get asked about resolution, and I never know what resolution I'm working on. I just kind of crop the image larger if that's what's needed.
All right. That's really cool. So it's about 3,000 by 4,000 pixels. And I think it just is in alignment with your ethos about working fast, just trying to get stuff out and not trying to make everything perfect, that the experience is more important than anything else and not so much the result. That if you can get over the fear of making perfect art, you can learn a lot more in the process and probably as a consequence make better art despite yourself. A couple other things I noticed here. Jonah flipped the canvas really quick. He may or may not have a shortcut, but it's just a canvas flip horizontal thing that he did there. And I just want to mention that. A couple other things here you guys may have noticed is that how is it that when he's painting the shading that it's sticking to that layer? Because it's linked to the layer underneath it. So when he was first blocking it out, that was the basic shape. And so while painting on the layer that's above it that's linked to it, it will respect the alpha of the layer below it. Just want to let you know about that.
Hey, Chris.
Yes?
Yes,
I have a question.
And for those Photoshop lovers out there, the way you would do that is you just create a new layer, hold down Alt, hold between them, and click. And what that allows me to do is just go in with any random color. Oh, I'm in grayscale. See, this is how not aware I am what's going on around me. But you can just, this is exactly what it allows me to do.
Right.
Very helpful. So once I've developed that silhouette, which inevitably will change and become refined, but once I develop it, then I can start working kind of within those limits and create something cool. So I'm sure that refinement will occur because, for instance, if I bring these levels way down, you can see that my silhouette is actually kind of mangled all over the place. But again, that's something that we're going to refine as we go and continue to kind of try to approach.
Okay.
So I'll probably make this a little bit darker, just to enhance a little bit of the punchiness. But yeah.
So Erica has a question for you. Erica, what's your question?
So at one point, does he start thinking about lighting and developing that part?
Okay. So Erica's question is, at what point do you start thinking about lighting and developing that part? I think you're working on lighting right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I start thinking about lighting right off the bat. Now, with that said, that's not something that a character artist might necessarily concern themselves with. Often a character artist's job is to simply create the object, simply create, whatever it is that they're creating. They're trying to convey an idea and they're trying to kind of get something across. So lighting might not be imperative because the object itself is kind of paramount. With that said, I try to define at least some kind of soft lighting right off the bat, because again, without lighting, we can't determine what our forms are. And if we can't determine what our forms are, well, that's the problem, right?
Right.
And so to help me figure out where everything is and how everything's laid out, I try to develop some kind of lighting right off the bat. With that said, an image like this does not have particularly strong lighting. It's kind of a soft, maybe an overcast lighting. Because I'm not trying to go for a very dramatic scene. But again, if we're working on other things, other pieces, here the lighting is much more specific. it's up and it's from above and it's coming down. And there's other pieces of art where the lighting, oops, oh no, I clicked on browse and bridge and that's gonna open the whole thing. There we go. I'm kind of just rooting around here and trying to see, if there's any good example right off the bat. Open that one, I can show. Oh, I did a Pennywise recently. That was pretty fun. I was really excited about the movie. So again, in a situation like this, the lighting is a bit more obvious. You can even see the lines coming down. And that really helps me, again, carve out form, carve out shape. And in the case of the squizzard here, just kind of define like those nice specular highlights and get him to look jelly-like as he should,
Right.
And then with something like Pennywise, he's got a general ambient light kind of coming from above, but a little bit from the front. But then a lot of the light is kind of coming from behind him. Anyone who's a fan of it might recognize these as the dead lights. And so I like that backlit look, and it helps create this kind of fleshy translucence to the whatever you want to call this paper mache look around his neck. So definitely figuring out lighting early is something I try to do. Yeah, good question.
So there's a fan watching from Nigeria. It's hard to pronounce his name, but he's like, it's 8:33 p.m. here. I think he was on his way out. The stream pops up. He's like, I sat back down. I'm going to watch this.
Yeah.
Loyal.
That's awesome.
That's right.
I spent a summer in Nigeria a bunch of years ago when I was 17, actually. So I don't know where they're at, but I was in Lagos most of the time. It was a very fun and really formative summer. So what's up, Nigeria?
Hey, your buddy Tony Lopez says, hey Jonah, please name the character after me. Love you. Thanks.
Her name is Tony.
Done, Tony. Tony. This is Tony Lopez, the female warrior.
I love it.
Tony, by the way, we went to elementary school, middle school, high school. Yeah, known Tony for a very long time. He was very excited when he called me. He was like, I met these guys. I really have this is a great idea. You'll be perfect for it. Yeah, he was amped. So thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be on here.
Hey, Molly, the fans are asking for you to move the talking bar down to the lower left corner.
Okay.
Because we're blocking something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Lower
guys.
left. Yeah, just bury it there. Cool.
Okay.
Some people are saying this could be Kratos from a different character, Kratos' wife from God of War. There's some gamers in here.
I'm a big fan of tough girls. Just any lady that looks like she can kick my ass, I will also like. It's like a combination of like I'm scared of you, I'm also in love with you. So I just recently became a fan of Rose Namajunas.
Oh yeah, sure.
She's So the bald head look. This is for you, Rose. If you're watching.
Rose is awesome. She became the champ.
She is. She's the champ. I mean, that's how that's how I even found her. I'm not, I like UFC, but I'm not like an avid watcher. But then I saw that fight, and I was like, wow, I've got a new crush, new celebrity crush. She's a badass, man.
She is.
And up to her. She really,
did you follow her story?
So I'm sorry.
Did you follow her story?
With regards to that particular fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's another reason why I really, kind of thought that she was so cool, because she has such a positive outlook, and she's so, she really approached it with a kind of very cool, very kind approach to things. Which is so cool in somebody who professionally beats people down,
Right.
Yeah. I was thinking of adding some either fur or feathers back here. I thought feathers could be fun because that's kind of an opportunity for color, and it's also something that's kind of unusual. You don't see that kind of thing often in armor design, and yet when I was looking beforehand, just trying to look at real life things, in real life armor rather, and warriors from different parts of the world. I started seeing feathers, and I was like, ooh, okay, I am a fan. And it's not easy to do feathers, to render those in kind of a 3D environment, because the limits of 3D are such that, until, what's that Bloodborne. I think it's Bloodborne. They didn't have a lot of. There's not a lot of feathers or fur or moving parts in games because they're kind of hard to render.
Right.
But this is.
So do you have to take that
this is
into
not
consideration when you're designing and modeling a character, that it's for a game environment and you kind of have to be smart or economical about how much geometry you add to it?
Yeah, man, for sure. If you're working on a game, I mean, it should never be a limiting factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's usually a way around it. And on something like, for instance, the giants for Skyrim, they have beards and they have dangly things and leather that's torn and all that. So it should never be like not, it should never be not an option. There's always a workaround. But until recently, game engines really weren't able to render such kind of smaller items or dangly, fluttery things or things that have a lot of alpha in them.
Uh-huh.
They weren't really able to render those in any kind of fast or efficient manner. So in this case, we don't have to worry about that because this is just a painting, and
Right.
most likely it'll just stay a painting. So that's why I'm saying let's go for the feathers if that's okay with everybody out there.
Yeah, let's do it. So I think you have a couple of friends in here. Brendan Rowe says, "Hey Jonah, this is Cosmic. Glad to see you're well, my friend." You know Brendan Rowe?
Man. I do. Brendan is a follower of mine from Twitch, and then I went to Ottawa for the Ottawa International Game Conference. It just so happened that Brendan lived up there, and he came out and he watched the talk that I gave up there, which if anyone's interested, you can see that talk on my website. It's a talk called My Heart Has a Nose, and it's all about kind of my own journey, kind of while at Bethesda and then after Bethesda, really trying to identify what it is that I wanted to do with my life. So if anyone, it's kind of like that kind of quest, what have you. But anyway, he came up there. We had a really good time. We played a lot of X-Men, the arcade version.
That's like Street Fighter, right? The X-Men version, or is that right or no?
No, that was. Well, this is the old one. The old one with like the little like plastic controllers with the different colors, and you could up to 4 players, and you could each be an X-Man. So I think that's a newer version you're talking about. This was like a 1998, what have you, and it's more like Battletoads or something like that, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where it's a platformer or it's a scrolling game, and you're going through and fighting hordes and hordes of sentinels and that kind of thing. I'm going to add some little metal plates to these leather straps here. It's armor. I got, what? It's funny. I went to a party a couple of days ago from Sketchfab. If anyone's familiar with Sketchfab, which is a 3D modeling service, and I met a woman there who is a professional fantasy armor designer. And I was like, man, you and I need to be friends. I feel like we're fated to I need to ask you questions. I need to know things about armor. I need you to yes. So I officially, not many people can say it, but I officially have an armor consultant. So
Wow.
It's funny.
yeah, isn't that fun?
That is fun.
Yeah.
So I have a question here, and I think I know what the answer is going to be. But are you an avid gamer as well?
I'm sorry? Are
you an avid gamer?
I am. I'm not as much of a gamer as I used to be, and a lot of that actually is Skyrim's fault. So when I was working on Skyrim, and more importantly, when I was working on Alduin, the last boss dragon that I was showing you earlier, he's pitted, he's extra unbelievably detailed, and he's just got so much going on that it took me a really long time to finish him, and I was working overtime super hard, and I ended up getting myself tendonitis.
Oh, wow.
And that has kind of plagued me for years since then. So I used to be extremely avid. I still play, probably more than I should, but I was into Counter-Strike beta when it came out years ago. I was really good at Counter-Strike, really good at Team Fortress, love Team Fortress. And then single player games like, the new Wolfenstein, the new Doom, huge fans of those. The XCOM franchise has got me absolutely hooked, and I just played through the sequel for maybe the third time with all the DLC and all that. So totally, I'm a huge fan. I did a tribute to one of my earliest favorite games. Where is it? Oh, here's the characters from Quake. I loved Quake.
Oh, that's cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I'll show you that real quick. I just wanted to do something. This was, again, this is me trying to change my art style and just really quickly run through the color schemes, the layouts, the silhouettes of the villains from that game. But that was a lot of fun to do.
They're actually kind of ugly cute.
I did the same for Half-Life as well, but if I'm actually looking for one particular Half-Life painting. It's right in here. Where do you? I'm a big fan of it, just because it was super fun to do. I did it on stream, and it's for anyone who's a game player and who loves Half-Life. This might pivotal, very, very. This is the end of Half-Life 1, and so I wanted to kind of copy that polygonal look a little bit. Also get enough of the personality and time to choose. So this was a big moment for me in video gaming. Half-Life definitely changed my outlook on games altogether, which I didn't even need because I loved them already. But yeah. Are you guys? I assume you guys are all gamers. Yeah.
A lot of us are gamers. Yes.
I'm
not everybody. Molly is not. Erica, are you a gamer?
I'm a social gamer.
Yeah, the answer is probably no then.
Yeah.
The girls here, not so much, but some of the girls like Jamie and Emily, they play those casual games. But for me, I probably have logged in the most amount of hours into a handful of games. One is Skyrim, just because of the nature of the open world, it's never ending, multiple quests within quests. Just keeping track of my quests is I needed a personal assistant just to deal with that. And then I put in a lot of hours into the original Ghost Recon from Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon on Xbox, the original Xbox. My gosh, I was addicted to that game. And I could tell because of it wasn't advanced 3D graphics, but the way they did it wasn't very arcadey. You would get shot once or twice and you're dead. And when you hear a gunfire, you just go prone. You just lay on the ground and you hope you can pivot fast enough to shoot the other person in the eye, as I would try to call it. And if you die, you get put in the timeout box and you just sit there and wait. And so I love that aspect of it. It puts you really on edge. And I logged in so many hours to that game that if I hear gunfire, I can tell what kind of gun that the person is using.
That was me with Counter-Strike. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the idea of, you're walking along, you hear a shot, you get peppered, and then you got about 0.4 seconds to spin your mouse around and shoot the other person in the head, or you're done. Dunzo.
That's right.
I played
so I just put another layer here, a multiply layer, just to kind of add some value here, because I've kind of worked on some of the shadows. I haven't necessarily nailed it, but we're kind of, we're closing in a little bit. And I wanted to kind of add some darkness to her armor here, which I assume is mostly leather, but yeah. And then I'm kind of pulling some of that out for the metal that's in the light. Although the metal that's in shadow will probably stay pretty dark. Okay. Yeah. So this is just to give you a quick rundown of kind of how it's been going. There's a couple layers. There's the layer here, value layer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm gonna throw a new layer back in the background here, and that'll be my kind of feather layer.
Cool.
And I'm gonna keep it loose because with something like feathers, you need a light touch, and you're gonna need some kind of detail a little bit. And I'm not ready for that. Not even by half. But to get the suggestion, to get the outline, I'm gonna kind of start throwing those in.
Okay. This is a slightly strange question here from D's Pants. He or she is saying, "Hey, Chris and Jonah, I've got a question about Photoshop. How do you usually save your files? Do you tend to merge the layers or reduce or up the quality and stuff like that? What's your process for industry standards?"
For saving files, well, I'll always save a Photoshop file, usually. As you can see, I tend to, again, working fast and loose, I collapse a lot of layers. I think a lot of artists out there do not do that. They kind of keep everything separate. I try to keep everything pretty flattened out, but there's usually several layers going on at once. So for instance, right now I'm flattening out a couple layers just to make my life easier, just to make things faster. And again, it's this kind of ingrained throwing myself in the deep end kind of thing where, hey, if I screw up, I'll just screw up and I'll just kind of deal with it. And in dealing with it, hopefully I'll learn some more lessons. So a lot of people kind of approach things very delicately and save everything out into different layers and make sure that they don't lose anything. I'm a big fan of losing things all the time. So I'm just kind of going,
yeah, I noticed.
And then otherwise, I'll just try to save it at the highest quality that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I noticed you're pretty economical with your layers, and maybe you're even more so now that you're mentioning that. You're only working with 2-3 layers at most, and collapsing things down often.
Yeah. Especially in something like this, it's. I think we're probably maybe a half hour into the stream. I hope to have something colored by the end of this stream, and something that's not finished and not polished, but something that's finished enough. And so, I'm not going to kind of waffle on things. I'm not going to flip back and forth between layers. I'm just kind of going for it and just hoping that whatever comes out okay. But for the time being, I'm happy with where we're at, and I'm just going to kind of commit. Just this is my little Rose Namajunas. This is my Tony Lopez. I'm just going to go ahead and just commit and just say this is just what it is, and I'm not going to worry about trying to create any perfection at this stage.
Let's call her Rose Lopez. Let's mash the two together. Rose Lopez.
Done.
Boom.
Lopez is actually a very common name in the world of Skyrim.
So I'm going to keep you on point here and manage time. So we are about 5 minutes away from 12 o'clock. How much time do you want me to allot for you to get to that finish point or finished enough? What do you think?
Whatever you want to do, man. Why don't you give me a target and I'll just try to, hammer it home if I can.
Okay.
But
Let's say
I'm flexible.
Okay.
However long
Let's do this.
The viewers are.
Okay, so let's say this, that you have 45 minutes to get done whatever you need to get done, because I want to leave time open for questions and people to comment and just for us to chat a little bit.
Okay. That sounds great.
All right, so I'll keep you on time there. Boom. So pace yourself.
Okay. And by pace yourself, you mean
hurry
go
up.
breakneck speed.
So we won't distract you too much with random weird questions here.
That's okay.
Is it okay?
I can juggle. And a lot of the process of painting is a lot of kind of problem solving that doesn't necessarily require an incredible amount of cognitive engagement, but it requires its own kind of attention. And so I'm able to kind of do both. And in fact, sometimes speaking can really kind of speed me along a little bit, I think. Just because it keeps part of me engaged. This is the same reason I like to draw while watching TV on the other monitor, where I'm not actually watching the television, but the narrative is kind of keeping me engaged and it's keeping me rooted in the spot and not distracted.
She's got great arms. You must be drawing Molly's arms right now. Look at those delts. Molly?
Yeah, look at those.
Are they?
Molly's right there in the camera. I'm just, just drawing the scene.
Molly flex for Jonah here.
Then I'm going to take my clothes off. I can't. Not right now.
I'm going to make these muscles bigger. My goodness.
Look, Molly, I'm not wearing pants. You don't have to you're
right.
Pull
You're right.
your sleeve up. It's
that
all
kind
good.
of stream, I guess.
It is that kind of stream. All right, let's see what's going on here on the chat. Let's see here. I saw a comment from SSB. He's saying, I am from India. It's 1:21 a.m. here. Yesterday was my exam, and tomorrow is an exam. But here I am watching this amazing stream. Love it. You probably should get some sleep, actually. But if you're into it, you can fall asleep watching us. That's cool. We don't mind.
Oh, fall asleep to the dulcet tones of our voice. Yeah. What's up, India? Hi. Thanks for joining us. That's so cool. See, this is why I love the internet, man. This is why I love streaming. So fun.
Marquis Presley says, Chris, you would love Counter-Strike. Go do it. Here's the problem, guys. I have to make this. I'm going to admit something right here, right on this stream.
Admit it.
I'm a console gamer. I don't, for some reason, I just can't do the mouse and keyboard thing. It's just so weird for me. I'm much more like this kind of thing. So that's
Yeah,
why
me too.
Counter-Strike. Yeah. Molly's like, me too. Yeah, whatever. Oh, you girls.
I do like games, but
I like
Just
games too.
Games you play with boys, but not.
Doesn't have to be boys.
that's true.
No, I don't really game on my own. That's all. I have like 2D games that I have on my iPod, phone, whatever, and I did do Undertale. That was my first official game. It's a PC game.
Oh,
The girls are talking about games. I'm like falling asleep here. Okay. Hey, DJ has a question for you. He I think says, I'd like to know how much of an influence has World of Warcraft had on the development of your art style?
That's funny that you asked that. Very little.
Yeah, that seems like a presumptive statement or question there.
No, I mean, listen, it's actually, I think it's a very fair question because the Blizzard art style is, it's prolific. And, and a lot of the reason it developed in the direction that it did is because they were designing all these games, StarCraft, Diablo, World of Warcraft, Warcraft itself. They're all top down, right? So you need to create an art style that is chunky, that is top heavy, and that reads from a distance. They have really nailed that. They are the kings of that. And so I would never besmirch their art style. I even have like a big thick $70 book of all their concept art for those games. I love it. With that said, it's such a defined style it's become this kind of industry standard a little bit. Not standard, but I just see it all being emulated all the time. And that's just not really how I roll. I'm much more interested in things that are a bit more realistic. I'm much more interested in things that seem a bit more practical. But I will always respect Blizzard's art style. They've really made their mark. But it's not for me. It's not for me. Just because I think it's a style that kind of tends to it's subsumed so much of the industry. So
here's another question come in from Paolo Cortez. He's asked this a couple of times. Now he's putting like bright emoticons right next to it so I can't miss it. His question is, how big of a career gap is it if he wants to transition from being a graphic designer to a concept artist? He says, I'm a graphic design student right now, but I'm studying art on my free time, like anatomy, value, perspective, etc. What's your take on that, Jonah?
That's hard to say. So much of that is based on individual talent and how much time you want to put into one thing or another. It's always hard to transition from one thing to another, but I think it's always worth it to push yourself and to aim for something else. So he said he's doing graphic design, is that right?
Yeah, he's studying graphic design, but he's also really interested in art.
Right. So there's definitely like a lot of overlap, I think, between that. They're both visual disciplines. So a lot of the principles of contrast, composition, lighting, form, shading, a lot of these translate, which is wonderful. So in that regard, he's not starting from scratch, right? But I wrote an article about that guy I mentioned before, Adam Adamowicz. The guy who did you can find it on Kotaku. It's called The Life and Creativity of a Great Bethesda Artist. And it's about him and his process. And the reason I bring it up is because so much of what he does, so much of what he did and so much of what made him a really good concept artist was his pursuit of originality and new ideas. So the way that manifested was that he just kind of output all kinds of art, all kinds of subject matter so fast and so quick. And he took in so many resources in doing it. Looking at architecture books or fashion magazines, that kind of thing. So to me, the biggest gap between being a concept artist and being a graphic designer concept artists, their role, as I see it, and I think this is probably fairly accurate, is that they need to come up with really good ideas. They have to come up with concepts that are going to inspire the team, and they're going to be concepts that nobody's really seen before. And to do that requires just a lot of time spent trying to build up your mental, your visual library, right? You can't create anything original until you've taken in all kinds of other things. And then in your head, you mix it around, you stir it up, and then you vomit it back onto the page. And to me, that's really so much of where creativity comes from. So it's fantastic that he's getting into that. I think it's absolutely within his reach, presumably. Again, I haven't seen his work, but and it sounds like he's doing exactly what he needs to do in studying anatomy, in studying contrast values, architecture, all these things. That is exactly the direction he needs to take. But he also needs to be creating original content. So not Blizzard concepts, not necessarily fan art only. Really trying to create things that are a bit more original, because your job as a concept artist is you're going to fuel the team that you're working with great ideas. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the one of the hurdles for him. But it's nowhere near insurmountable, and it's totally worth his time. And I'm sure that it's going. Good luck. But I'm not. I didn't say that you need it. Like, good luck. You're going to need it. But just like, good luck. It's a long journey, and it's a really fun and rewarding journey. And I think it's the kind of journey that only really improves you as an artist and as a creator.
Mm-hmm. So I want to take stock of what we're doing right now, just in case somebody's just joining us. I'm talking to Jonah Lobe. He's working on Photoshop out of his studio in Brooklyn, and we're working on a fictional armor design for a female character in the world of Skyrim. There's some leather. I think her shoulder pads may be metallic, because I see that nice specular highlight there. We don't know yet what it is, and Jonah's just working through the problem in real time with us. I have some questions about what she's wearing right now. As far as I can read this image, it looks like she's wearing some kind of leather X bra breastplate, but is she naked underneath that? Or now you're adding in some stuff here. So it's not like a bikini warrior top.
I want something, exactly. I want something form-fitting, but I'm thinking I was looking at padded quilted armor earlier. Mm-hmm. Now, presumably I would, a lot of these armors, this kind of plates would kind of proceed down the length of it. I could definitely integrate that, but part of me is also just kind of wants maybe something a bit more kind of like a Grecian breastplate or something that it's molded to the human form a little bit. So trying to kind of cover her up whilst, and still letting her be tough and sexy, but also practical at the same time. So these string from the top here. There's kind of a loop up here,
right? And
then these string from the top from the breastplate, but then this whole thing it's all one suit. So I guess it's a lot like, now that I'm looking at it, it reminds me a lot of Wonder Woman's outfit, kind of what she had going on. So I thought her armor design was really cool. I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This also feels like it could be part of the Road Warrior world too, like Furiosa or something. Very tough, very punk. Salvaged materials. The bald head,
the kind of nondescript pelt-looking thing around the head, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm all into that.
All right, so here we got a comment. Taysir, he says it's 11 p.m. here in Iraq, and he's working on a design project and watching the live stream at the same time. Happy face. So some people have shared the article that you mentioned, and they're saying they love that article.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for reading it. Yeah, the reason I wrote that article in part was because actually the concept artist passed away about a year or so before I left Bethesda. Really sad, really sudden. He was very young and so talented. And so, a lot of it was, I released that kind of on the eve of Fallout 4's release because nobody knows who are the individual artists who make these things, right? Like everyone's really psyched, to hear, oh, you worked on Skyrim, you worked on Fallout, that's so cool. But, no one's going to know that unless they really ask or whatever. So the fact that he designed so much of the concept art for Fallout 3, literally 100% of it, so much of the concept art, at least 50% for Skyrim. And then he passed away during the creation of Fallout 4, but he gave so much of himself to that game as well. I mean, he literally worked on concept art for that game from his hospital bed.
Wow.
So for me, it was really about, I really wanted at the pivotal juncture of when Fallout 4 was about to come out and everyone's frantically Googling for information, I wanted him to be known and to be recognized and to kind of, for people to know the name of, you know, of the guy responsible for so much awesomeness, you know, because otherwise that kind of thing, you don't hear about it. So.
Hey, Molly,
Yeah?
why don't we cut to my screen, Eric, and give Molly a chance to kind of skim through the Facebook comments, because I can't watch Facebook and YouTube at the same time, so why don't we do that?
I have a question for Jonah.
Okay, go ahead, ask it.
So what are the deciding factors in making consistent designs, whether it be for characters in the world, so that they all match?
All right, very good question. So Erica's asking, what are the deciding factors in creating consistent design so that the characters all match within that world?
Oh, interesting. Good question. Whoever asked that. So definitely having in mind place and time, you know, helps an enormous amount. So for something like Skyrim, there was a lot of emphasis, you know, on this is kind of medieval level. This is Nordic. So we're going to be thinking a lot about the kinds of technologies available to them at the time. So material type. So again, this is kind of what makes this fit more within the Skyrim realm, is that she's wearing armor, metal, feathers. She's got a bit more of a kind of a tribal look. That's going to kind of help define where she is in the time and place. For something like Fallout, that's quite a bit different, obviously. And that's going to involve a lot of ruin, right? A lot of like remnants of the old world, and a lot of rust, a lot of like asbestos padding, that kind of thing. Another thing that ties a lot of these things together in a game world is color scheme, honestly. It sounds silly, sounds minor, but I guess given that this is, you know, you guys are design centric, it's also probably not so crazy, right? It makes sense that you'd want everything to be pretty consistent and fit within a similar color palette. So on something like Fallout, especially the most recent Fallout, the idea was a rundown world, drab colors, everything's kind of grungy and kind of covered in this dust that is all actually uniform color. But then there's spots of color throughout the game world, like real, beautiful, living color. Especially blues, especially reds. You know, the idea there is that, yes, the world is totally destroyed, but we don't want you to feel absolutely depressed while you're playing with it. And we want to give you some sense that, yes, things are in ruin, but the world is coming back. And so and that had the added benefit of, as you're walking through the game world, these bright colors draw your eye to areas of interest. So it has kind of a multi-purpose kind of a thing, multi-purpose purpose. Yeah.
I noticed something. Almost every artist that I've ever watched, and when they're doing a demo, they tend to jump around. They don't just finish the head or just the breastplate. They jump around, and I can see that's consistent with you too. When do you know when to stop working on the nose or the eyes and then move on to the breastplate or forearms or something like that?
Great question. You know, on a piece like this, I'm definitely focused on kind of bringing the whole thing up kind of at one time if possible. So, you know, it's a bit like working in clay or something. You want to make sure that the overall balance of whatever you're working on is working. And so you can't really achieve that balance if you've refined one section and then left another one on its own. Also, you know, especially when it comes to things like proportion and things like that, you never really know for sure if it's going to be right until you kind of see all of it. So it's really a question of trying to jump around and kind of pulling everything along a path that is at least at least somewhat balanced with each other. So in this instance, I want her faces are always object of interest. So even though that's not the focus of today's stream, we're focusing on the armor. It's inevitable that people are going to focus in on that head. And so I want that head to be, and that face to be just engaging enough where it's worth your time to look at it. But then I'm going to kind of jump around to other areas. So especially as I push the values, so you can see here that I just started adding these little contact shadows that are extra dark. And and what that does is it kind of draws your eye, it draws attention, and it implies perhaps more detail than is otherwise there. So when I take it away here, suddenly it looks a lot more blurry, a lot more basic. And then when I pull it back in, obviously there's other things going on. But you can see that whenever there's these sharp contact points of darkness, it feels like a bit more concrete. So I try to kind of pepper those throughout and make that, So it's definitely a process of bringing the whole thing up at the same time. And I'll do the same thing, by the way, when I'm doing 3D art, game design, character creation. I will always treat the object as if it's like this piece of clay that must be kind of molded and pushed around kind of gradually, because shapes, lines, forms, these things feed off each other and derive energy from one another. So you want to make sure that things are working kind of in not synergy, but they're working with each other. You just want to make sure that everything kind of feeds into everything else in just the right way, but you won't know that can work until you have something kind of really figured out shape-wise, line-wise, form-wise. So, building up the forms is step one, and then we refine from there. And so I definitely think that's a big belief of mine, and I would actually probably say most successful artists, unless you're kind of a savant, and those are out there too, they're going to build something up kind of gradually and in pieces because they want the pieces to work in harmony with one another. And they're kind of going for an overall vision as opposed to getting this one thing right and then making everything else work around that, because you could get that one thing right and then discover, oh, this is actually 2 inches off. And that's just the worst feeling. So definitely want to avoid that as much as possible.
Perfect.
Chris.
Yes. So Molly, you ready for me? You got some Facebook questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So they want to know, Cole is asking, I'd love to know how you went about learning about anatomy.
Okay, that's a good question.
And a follow-up question is he self-taught or did he go to school to learn how to draw?
Very good.
Okay.
So Cole from Facebook wants to know, how did you learn about anatomy? Are you self-taught or did you go to school? Tell us about that.
Great question. That's been a struggle of mine. Anyone who wants to learn anatomy knows that it's not easy and it takes a very long time to learn. I have some models here in my office, which I'll show as we, when we finish this painting and we go back to just the normal interview mode. But I definitely just spend a lot of time looking at it. I go onto websites and I draw a lot of figures. I really focus on figure drawing a lot because that's really kind of important if you want to be a concept artist, if you want to be a creature designer. You really, really, really need to know how things go. And really, there's not much you can do to kind of absorb that information, but bang your head against a wall and cry for long periods of time, and just try to capture the things you see. Hands plague me. Right?
Oh, the hands!
I know.
Oh,
covered in hands.
The bane of my existence, drawing hands.
Bane of everybody's existence.
They're not kind things. Faces. I've worked on heads and faces for a long time, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be. But they're definitely my stronger suit, right? So it's a constant process. But I would say go onto the web, find concept images, just start drawing. And if I were to recommend a book or 3, I would say Andrew Loomis is a fantastic resource. That's Loomis. And you can actually find those books of his online for free because he he wrote in the 50s, I think. So a lot of it's very classic looking. It looks like drawings from old fashioned magazines, but it really, I mean, he breaks it down in an incredibly intuitive way. So I would pick that up for sure. There's Michael Bridgman, George Hampton. George Bridgman. Mm-hmm. Michael Hampton. I'll pull those out, when we later on to show. But I found that the best way to succeed and to absorb that information was also the most frustrating, which is copy. Like just look at the drawing and then just copy and copy it as exactly as you can. Mm-hmm. And there's no way around it. It is a mind-numbing experience. But literally over the course of an afternoon, or of an hour and a half of copying a page of that laboriously, I will actually be better at it. Just a little bit better. I will leveled up just a bit, but it's totally worth it. So a combination of books, a combination of reference from the internet, just live drawing. So I definitely try to mix it up, right? I try to do both the rigorous, disciplined learning process, and I try to then take it easy and just draw what I see online. And then when I'm on the subway, I'll try to draw people that I see, across from me. And then if there's no one around, I will just try to construct human torsos from stick figures, that kind of thing, and hope that they come out right. And usually they don't, but that's okay, because every time I screw up, it's like I've learned something new.
All right, so I just want to do a time check with you right now. We're about 20 after, so you have about 20 or so. Well, no, you have a little bit more than that. Let's see here. You have another 25 minutes or so. And I know somebody in here is saying, Jonah, we have to see you take this to color, because he says when he goes to color, that's where he gets lost and he can't figure it out. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to kind of ask our audience, both on our entire audience on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Maybe we need to introduce one variable so that they have some participation in this piece of art. Mm-hmm. So one person is suggesting a tattoo, but before we commit to that, you guys, go ahead and bomb the comment section. What do you want Jonah to do or to add? One component or something, and he can integrate into this drawing so it's live and not a robot drawing this.
Robot.
That sounds great. And I'll definitely, I'm just going to wait just 1 second to hear back for suggestions. I like the idea of a tattoo. I'm all about it. We can do one on her head. Yep. We can do one on her arm. She's got the arms for it.
She does.
Or if someone else has a good idea, I'm into it. But then, yes, I'll dive directly into the color, and we'll try to do a really quick pass. And it won't look decent, but it will hopefully give people a sense of the process.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Molly, is there another question from Facebook? Let's do rapid fire. There's a couple other questions coming here. And you got something else for me, Molly?
No, not just someone wanted to know where he gets his inspiration from.
Oh, wait, you know what?
What?
Before you ask that question, Jonah, you didn't answer the question. Were you formally trained? Did you take anatomy classes while in school?
Oh.
Yeah, you dodged that one.
I took one figure drawing class in college, and I was upset to find out that most of the time we were boxes anyway. But yeah, I did a little bit of that, but nothing major. So I was an art major, but I didn't go to art school. So I got to draw sometimes from life models, but I didn't really get to dive in nearly to the extent that I wanted. So I wouldn't say that I've had formal training, but I've had enough training to give me a foundation, and a lot of it otherwise has been a bit more self-taught.
Well, I'm going to just say that it's kind of sad, because I've actually had formal art training in figure drawing. I can say that I'm almost as good as you. All right. What else have we got, Molly? Oh, what did you say?
We have someone said add a mohawk. I think that's pretty cool.
There's some hair suggestions, adding a mohawk or some hair thing, adding tattoos, which I also like. What else?
A cape.
A cape?
But she has her feathers.
She has the feathers.
Yeah.
Oh, no, guys, come on. Let's keep this appropriate. Please, gentlemen.
A dragon skull over the head.
Someone said a silly hat. Yeah, let's make it silly.
One of those small top hats.
No, not hair. I don't want hair.
Somebody said feathers on the spear.
Face paint.
I like her bald.
I'm just showing what
me too.
This could look like if she had hair.
I like her bald.
I like her
I
bald.
like her more
Yeah.
like shaved
Yeah.
head
Me
or
too.
very
Damn.
short hair. It's the way to go. Okay, mohawk feathers.
That's what you want, Chris. That's what we're doing. Yeah, feathers on the spear. I could totally throw some feathers in there. Totally. I guess there's not even a spear head at the moment, so probably need one of those. Kind of going off screen a little bit, and then we'll add some bindings up here. Let's go dark with those,
Someone said some kind of muzzle.
and then some feathers.
That'd be interesting.
Lion head armor.
Are people being inappropriate on the internet?
Some are, but they're just being stupid. A headband, a muzzle. Somebody wants her to wear a thong. I mean, come on, guys. Chris's glasses. No, this is ancient times, guys. Come on, let's be real. A mustache.
Glasses.
You guys are ridiculous.
Somebody said a lion
Well,
head armor shoulder
let's
piece.
go ahead and give her like maybe a head tattoo.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do it.
All right.
Why don't we get some suggestions from people like what, or maybe or an arm tattoo, whichever. But why don't we throw some animals or subject matter at me?
Somebody
And,
said
I'll, and
a
I'll
bear.
see if we can just really quickly design a cool tattoo.
A bear. Somebody mentioned a lion or a dragon.
Dragon.
Okay.
Dragon skull, I think.
Okay,
it was.
but let's be mindful of time. Now we got 20 minutes left,
You're right.
so we got to do this quick, and then
Apple headphones. Sorry.
Apple headphones. Come on, guys. See
Snake
our
tattoo.
audience, this is the new earbuds.
Yeah, the new ones.
Just chilling out, listen to some Enya,
AirPods.
A panther tattoo.
A panther.
I'm seeing
What do you got?
Cool.
What are you gonna
This
do?
will work out.
Something tribal could be really cool too.
Yeah. Circles, lines.
A wolf. Maybe just a head.
Let's see what he's gonna do here. You guys guess it as soon as
I
you
don't
can
know.
figure it out. It's a dragon.
Yeah, it is.
I already can tell.
I'm kind of going for some
No,
kind of,
no, it's a
some
creature
kind
with
of-
2 arms.
It's a squid. Just kidding.
I don't know. It looks a little silly to me.
In keeping
No, I
with
like
the
it.
time, we would want to make a tattoo that is reflective of the technology and the tools of the time, right? So they'd be a lot more primitive,
Yeah. Mm.
right?
Yeah. So why don't we do something that's more kind of line based, huh?
Yeah,
But,
line shape, something,
Okay.
right?
yeah. Okay. So let's do a dragon because why not?
Okay.
I'm going to. I'm trying to think of the best kind of like way to arc this, right? Like we're talking a lot about synergy and about things kind of flowing together. So no, I don't like that. This is always tough because every time I try to design a tattoo like this, it's like, well, now I want to design a tattoo that I would want, so it always takes a little bit longer. But we can come up with some basic.
And Jonah, while you're doing this
Shapes.
and working out the shape, I noticed you don't rotate your canvas much. I know a lot of artists like to rotate their canvas to make it more in keeping with like a sheet of paper, so that your stroke is moving with your body.
Yeah, I guess I don't really. Right now I'm standing up, and so that kind of, it's and I can rotate my Cintiq tablet, so I don't necessarily need to go in there and do like manual rotation in this way. So I can do it manually, but no, I generally tend, until I get to the fine detail, I kind of go for it.
I see.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna rotate. Okay.
What's that, Molly?
There's another question.
What's the question? Go ahead.
Let's see. This one's from Twitch.
Twitch.
Yes.
All right.
What is one advice you would give someone wanting to work for the big games like Skyrim?
Okay, that's a good question. This is coming from Twitch. What's the one piece of advice that you would give for somebody who wants to work at a big studio, like who wants to work on Skyrim or something?
You're gonna laugh, but it would be put the video games down and get to work on what it is you're going to be doing.
Blasphemy.
Sorry?
I said that's blasphemy. Put the video game down.
I know it's blasphemy.
Jonah, what are you doing to us?
I gotta be the messenger. I think there's a lot of people out there, and I obviously don't know the person who's asking on Twitch, but what's up, Twitch? Nice to see you. But a lot of people are still under the impression that that working on games means playing games or being an expert in games. And games, you can learn an enormous amount. And if you're in the game industry, it's certain or almost certain that you will play some games, right? But with that said, I think a lot of hours can be poured into games. That's kind of what they're designed for. But ultimately, you're not going to be playing, unless you're QA, you're not going to be playing games while you're at the studio. You're going to be designing games. And so if what you want to do more than anything is to create games for a living, and you want in these industries and you want in this business, you're going to have to spend a lot of not fun time working on your craft, because that's what's going to get you the job. And it's not going to be your great idea for a game that you have. I think a lot of people also would think that. I've got a great idea for a game. I should be a game designer. The problem is a lot of people have really good ideas for games. And if they're already game designers, well, they're going to do their idea and not your idea. So I would say put the games down for a while and really just focus on your craft and just become comfortable with it not being so fun right off the bat. And, because remember that this is a discipline like any other. And this is a very competitive industry. A lot of people want to, art industry, and it's a fast growing industry, but the number of folks who want to be a part of this industry is also growing really fast. And they're learning all the most recent tools and abilities and programs. And if you don't know them, those things, then you're just going to be at a disadvantage, and you're gonna have your dreams crushed. So play those games, enjoy them, take what you can from them, and then put them down, and spend some time on your craft and just trying to get comfortable and have fun creating. Because that's really the most important part. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of hard. It's definitely hard work, and I think people don't totally get that. There we go. I've just faded it back into her scalp just a little bit.
Nice.
Beautiful. Girl with the dragon tattoo.
Cool.
Good
so let's
job.
move on to color, because I think
yes,
we want to know.
15 minutes. So Erica and Molly, can you guys cut back to Molly's screen when she's ready?
Okay.
Because I'll have to get ready for the end of the show with my
Hold on.
screen. Yeah, whenever you're ready. So
Wait
here we're going to
for
enter
it.
into color mode. And
Dun,
Jonah's
dun,
got
dun.
about 15 minutes left here.
I'm good. You can cut. Okay.
So what I've done here to start this off is I've created a gradient map. Now, this is not necessarily how everyone works, but I've created a gradient map and I'm mapping it to her. What a gradient map is, and to create that, you go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Gradient Map. Now it's taken this bar of color here and mapped it to my character. The whites are this color, the blacks are that color. You can flip them, you can do crazy things with them. You can move it around, and you can really do some crazy things. But it's a very powerful tool, and it's a great way, in my own experience, to get started. So we can either color this to be realistically colored, or we can go, kind of what we're looking at now, which is a bit more graphic with it. If that appeals to you guys, we can do either one.
I think you should decide, Jonah.
Okay.
Nice trick, by the way.
Liking this.
Yeah, that's a good trick.
Sorry?
It's a nice trick that you're doing here.
It's like it's done.
It's a great way to get started. And if this
Yeah.
was a normal painting that I was working on, I would keep this a lot more subtle. So, in the interest of just showing my coloring process,
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll keep it subtle now, and I'll
Yeah.
keep it relaxed.
Okay.
But what I would do is, so there's a kind of a rule here that I like to abide by that I think is very helpful. So that is, it's the rule of color contrast, right? And this is a rule that transcends industry or genre or what have you. When you are working on a piece of art and you want that piece to pop and you want things to kind of really stand out from one another, it's my approach here is cool on one side of this color light spectrum and warm on the other. So in this case, I'm kind of taking this kind of subtle blue color and saying, okay, that blue color is the darkness. And then when I move over to the lighter areas, I'll go warmer, right? So I'm keeping it pretty neutral, and I'm definitely trying to keep it subtle, but I want to create that subtle balance between from one to the next. And that's just going to help it pop a little bit more. I don't know if you could see that. Actually, if I change this into a color map, there you go. But the colors and the values and the visual interest just kind of grows a little bit when you add in that dichotomy. So I can go back in here and really kind of move the bars around, really kind of finesse. And there, that provides me this nice kind of back and forth look that I'm really valuing.
Yeah, you're diving into color theory and how light works. If you light a subject with warm light, it's going to have cool shadows. And in color correction, for the cinematographers that are watching the show, it's a very popular color correction style. It's called the orange teal color correction. So you get nice orange warm light, and then you get cool shadows. I got a quick question here coming in from Heidi, my friend from Cairo, Egypt. She's asking if I would. She wants to put together a portfolio of 3 to 10 pieces for a gaming industry as a concept artist. What do they want to see? What are the 3 to 10 pieces that they want to see in the gaming industry for concept artists?
Great question. Well, first of all, it's got to be always your best, right? You're always, the 10 to 12 best you've got, it's got to blow them away. And it doesn't have to be 10 to 12. It can be any number. And in fact, in some ways, the fewer, the better, the stronger, the better as well. So if it comes down to, you trying to pick between, 14 drawings with a couple that are not so favorite, and then 9 that are just top notch, you're going to want to put that foot forward. So narrow it down to whatever is a more demonstrative of the artist that you are, or since we're all kind of cheating a little bit with portfolios, the artist that you are promising that you will be. And the idea is you will be that artist one day, right? So, that's definitely how I got my gig at Bethesda. I showed them abilities that were beyond my own. And then when I got there, I was like, well, time to do that then. I guess I have to see if I can tackle it. But that's what you want to do. So I would definitely focus on quality first. And then as a concept artist, like I said before, you're going to want to show new ideas. So 1 or 2 pieces of fan art is great. And if you can tailor that fan art to the company you're working for, that's even better, because then you're demonstrating a real knowledge of where they're coming from. And you're also demonstrating a plug and play ability. They hire you. Well, you can start work on day 1. You don't have to go, you don't have to focus on learning their style. You're plug and play. You're ready to go. They can just sit you down at a desk and you're going to start churning out great work. With that said, you don't want to spend too much time on fan art. In fact, I would de-emphasize the fan art quite a bit. So it can be really good for your portfolio. It can be really good for your online stuff. But ultimately, as a concept artist, you're going to be. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. You're going to be you're trying to demonstrate your ability to create new, fun, original ideas. So definitely focus on originality and basically making something that when they see it, they go, wow, who is this? Love their style. That would be fun. That would be a fun kind of style to embrace with the game. It also just shows that you're versatile, that you're knowledgeable, and you know how to mix things up. So tailor your work to the company, but don't be slavish to it. Create your own thing and showcase what an amazing artist you are in your own right, because that's really what's going to sell you, I think.
Great.
Let me just make one technical thing that I did that many people may not have noticed. This is a color layer that I have going on here, but a lot of the problem with the color layer is that it kind of, if I'll take this back, it bleeds everywhere, right? It applies to everything equally. But if you go into blending options, you can pull this around. You can pull it out of the highlights. You can pull it out of the shadows, And so what I'm doing here is I'm kind of pulling out of the shadows and letting that blue kind of still shine through, the blue of the shadows, just to create that nice, to continue that balance. And also, as I'm coloring, I am adding I'm kind of layering in the colors. And so at first it's going to appear not especially contrasty, and then I build up the color contrast as I go. So that's that.
Nice. I'm glad you explained that.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Me too. And she's a Nord, so we'll give her some blue eyes.
Yes.
There we go.
Molly
I'm trying to
approves.
think of other options for blues here. And then also, this is a quick color treatment that I'm doing, and this is often when I start refining. So I won't, I used to do a lot of the refining while in the black and white stage. I will do a lot more refining at this stage here. So, once I've added in these fundamentals, these basic colors, and again, I want to keep those colors somewhat muted, not punchy right off the bat, because punchy is going to draw your eye. And so we want to make sure that we are approaching this in the same way we approach the rendering, which is that we're building up our forms, we're building up our colors, we're not diving in anywhere too fast. But as we go, we're going to start working towards more and more contrast and brightness. So with these feathers, for instance, I now created a new layer, a normal layer, just a regular layer. I'm going to add more contrast in there, and I'm going to start kind of painting a little bit on top. Looks like it's bound to the layer beneath it. There we go. And adding in these kind of solid chunks of color that will kind of build up and kind of start to catch your eye. So yeah.
So Jonah, with a question about the portfolio, you gave advice about fewer pieces of higher quality are good. Some fan art, but don't try to put in your original stuff. Tailor your portfolio to the company that you're applying to. But what subject matter should I include? Should I include character design? Should I include weapons and armor? Like, do you have a ratio of what you should include and give us some guidance there?
Sure, that's a good question. Yeah, so you're definitely going to want to create as much of a mix as possible. It's a bit hard because ultimately you really want to show them like, I'm the best artist ever and I can do everything. But if you're only good at certain things, definitely play to your strengths. If you're good at characters, do a lot of character design. I think characters, especially for concept artists, like that does matter. That is important. People are going to want that on their team. With that said, you're going to want to, if you're good at architecture, then do that. Do a lot of that. Showcase a range of abilities, because ultimately, as a character artist, you're going to be tested on you're going to have to tackle any number of subjects, and you're just going to have to do as good a job as you possibly can. But definitely play to your strengths. We are not. You're never going to have a portfolio that you're like, well, now I'm ready. It's perfect. I'm amazing, and I can get any job at all. You're really, you're just going to have to kind of muscle your way in. You're going to have to fake a lot of it. So don't feel like I don't like that color. Too much yellow. Don't feel like it needs to be just so beforehand. But a mix is always good, because you're just trying to demonstrate versatility, and that you're demonstrating an ability to dive in right off the bat and create awesome things that run the gamut. So but again, remember also that as a concept artist, you are designing for a team of artists. So orthoscopic views of items is items, weapons, armors, outfits. That's always helpful. I'm gonna hint at some kind of carving here, just by adding some darkness here and then adding a couple highlights in there. Orthoscopic views of items, so that that basically tell a character artist, a concept art, an environment artist, this is what you do and this is what it looks like from different angles, etc. So that's important. And then some characters if you can do it, and some basic perspective for buildings and that kind of thing. Hope that answered it.
Yeah, those little squiggly lines added a lot, and I don't even know what it is, but it's kind of cool.
What was it for?
Nice.
It's like some kind of carving on the armor, Molly.
Oh, got it.
It could be a lion, a snake, the
Yeah.
family crest or something.
Yeah.
Some tribal thing.
Dragon.
It's just indicating something.
This is definitely Yeah, this is definitely something I've been trying to do a lot more of recently, which is not painting in every bit of detail, but implying detail, right? Like that's what the Renaissance masters did. You know, their stuff looks photorealistic, and then you stand in close and you're like, wow, you guys did so little. I'm shocked. But it's really that mastery of kind of color and light. And then I'm when I use the word mastery, I'm not applying it to myself at all. I'm just, you know, yeah. But it's all about, you know, if you can create these broader forms that have some sense of three-dimensionality to them, and in this case have some specular detailing that basically says this is metal, then if you can kind of do some similar things there, then you can imply a lot of detail. And remember that small details will conform to the larger shape. So, you know, you don't want to do glittery, shiny detail out here, because ultimately this is in shadow, right? And so things that are in shadow kind of tend to blur out. And our eyes are attracted to areas of high contrast, and they're going to focus on, you know, areas like in the middle here. So I could really go in here and just, you know, just to demonstrate, I could really go in here and just kind of blur that out with a solid brush, and you probably wouldn't even notice, right? Because it's in the shadow, it doesn't matter. And in fact, doing that, I almost think it looks better because it pushes that to the background more, and it makes you pay a little less attention to that, and makes you pay a little bit more attention to the other places. So creating this kind of muddiness in areas where it doesn't matter if there's a viewer looking at it, that can be helpful, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another good tip there. Okay, I say that we should put 5 more minutes into this, and then kind of answer any questions and just have a normal dialogue. Just people are wondering, when is this going to be finished? Should you come on for a second or third episode? Where's the 3D model version of this? They're greedy.
Yeah,
They're just really greedy. You give them a little bit,
because
Jonah.
you spoiled them, Chris.
Listen, I'm happy. You know, if you guys, if in a couple months or in a couple of years or next week, you know, let me know.
Okay.
Around.
All right.
I'm happy to.
Awesome.
I'm having fun. So
we're going to take you up on this. So I think what we should do is try to find a logical conclusion to this phase of it in the next few minutes, and then document this, and then revisit this in a few weeks, maybe in the new year, and kind of take it to the next level.
Yes.
Molly's excited about that.
That sounds great. We can add a background. Good. We can add some fluttering banners in the background. We can have some fun with it. So
great.
Come in.
Okay. You put a little highlight on her lower lip there, huh? Little lip gloss?
Just a little bit of red.
Some blush.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of lip gloss. You know, I mean, listen, it's frosty up there, man. You gotta apply that lip gloss.
Right. Don't want to have chapped lips for your dragon warrior, Rose Lopez. You know, luscious lips. So people seem to be screaming for a 3D model, but let's just relax, guys. Just relax. All right, we'll deal with this later.
I have some cool 3D work that I'll show right after this, just for our own fun.
So what are those little metallic squares that you've added to the leather band that goes across her breast?
Oh, just plates. I mean, just, you know, so these are leather bands, and then this is how a lot of armor was built back in the day. You know, especially if it's lightweight. Mm-hmm. You know, this is not. She's wearing pauldrons, but ultimately this is a fairly lightweight piece of armor. Mm-hmm. You know, designed to kind of maximize flexibility and that kind of thing. So back in the day, this is how a lot of armor was created. It's leather so that it's flexible, and then you kind of plate it with these different pieces of metal that basically, you know, it's not complete, but it definitely adds to the overall protection. Mm-hmm. For sure. So, and given that this is kind of, you know, this is our center of focus, you know, I want those to kind of shine through a little bit and look fairly decent. So. And again, just pushing some of that leather back visually. Maybe I'll take this is a cord kind of strung across your body. Maybe I'll make that, why not? A kind of a dull purple.
You're keeping the chroma values pretty similar throughout this, and you're not going to want to put a super saturated thing, right? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I can for sure go in here, you know, and, you know, the chroma here is pretty bright.
Yep.
And that's cool because again, like this is her face, this is her head, this is, a lot of things are coming together attention wise. So I want that to kind of come through. But for sure, to a lot of artists out there, I see a lot of oversaturation. Color is a really powerful thing, and it's going to draw the eye, right? In some really interesting ways. So wherever there is greatest contrast in color and wherever the colors are brightest or most saturated, that's where your eye is going to go. So, in areas like down here, it wouldn't really behoove me. It would look cool if I went into here and I added this, I made this kind of like totally gold, and that doesn't look terrible there. But what that's doing in essence, if I did it, and again, that's not particularly chromed out, but if I would do this kind of thing, well, now it might look cool, but your eye is now actually diverted down here, right, to a more unimportant area. So I'm trying to keep things real subtle, and I'm trying to kind of build up the general forms, the general shading with these low colors. And then, I can go in here and then add, some bright blue highlights to the feathers if that's like a thing, right? Like just to add that contrast. There's a great picture that I did. And when I say great, I don't mean it's a great picture. I mean, it's a great example of this here, where this is something I did on the Adobe stream a couple maybe 6 months ago. And that's one, just to point out, the areas of greatest contrast, of black and white. So here it's blackest here and whitest here. And then the areas of most color, so AKA blue here, blue here, blue here, and some purple here, that's gonna pull your eye into this region. And that's the most important region, and everything else fades out. So color and value is very powerful, and wielding color and value to your advantage in exercising restraint to start off with, and then to go a little bit more creative with it later. I don't even know if this blue is the right color. It probably isn't, but just trying to make a point here, right, is that, I can control, and anyone can control where the eye goes just by the amount of color and the brightness and et cetera that goes into those areas. And the blue of her eyes, for instance, is going to hopefully, echo off of those blue of the feathers there, and they'll hopefully amplify one another. Mm-hmm. There's a little sparkle in the eye. And maybe I'll go in here. Oh, you know what could be cool? Let's get a dull orange. Maybe tilt it a little bit more into the red spectrum. And again, if there's a color that is a little bit different from the others, it can't be completely different. If there's a splotch of this color here, or maybe like a bit more red here, you're going to want hints of it, down here, just to really balance that out. But I can go in here and I can add, some kind of face paint.
Face paint.
And I'm going in there with kind of a solid brush, and then I could, use the blend options and kind of pull it out of the darkest areas just a little bit more.
Looks like the dragon's bleed.
Or I can also pull it out of the highlights so it kind of, bleeds out a little bit there as well. That's something I could do. I don't know. It doesn't look like it looks particularly good here, but again, we're just experimenting and we're playing around and seeing what we can get out of it. And anyway, I'll be finishing this, next time I'm on, so no hurry, right?
Yeah.
Right. I like that little bit of war paint that you put on her.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's really
it's like
cool.
the dragon's breathing fire.
And this is a great example of where you have that dark desaturated bit, and then I come in here with a brighter color. Oh no, you know what? That's the erasure brush. I can go in with a brighter color and kind of just add just a bit more saturation, just to really drive it home, really catch your eye, and hopefully that can pull the viewer's attention in just a bit more. I'll go ahead and grab this dark color here, pull it down into the darkness here, and just kind of add. Is that working? Yeah. There we go.
So she's got some, what do you call that, Molly? Eyeshadow?
Yeah. Chris, don't act like you don't know what that's
Shut up,
called.
Molly. Leave me alone. Stop harassing me. All right. She's like
on.
saying, like, pretend like I don't know what that is. I've been at Sephora many times.
Yes,
I
you
get
have.
With eyes like that, come on, man. You know what eyeshadow is.
All right. So let's. Have you been
All right.
saving this file at all?
Out of
He
10.
has.
Have you saved this, Jonah? Have you hit save at
Yeah,
all?
occasionally. I say.
Okay, you have. Okay.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll ask an artist, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to name the file because I haven't saved at all.
Yes, I'm glad.
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank
So
you.
here's what I'd like
So
to.
I don't know if we'll keep that, but it's a nice,
Yeah.
nice touch.
We'll see next time. You guys will have to stay tuned. This is the cliffhanger ending to this.
Yes.
So Jonah, I'd love to get the layered PSD file to use as part of the thumbnail art for this. And let me
Sure.
let's cut to Jonah full screen. Let's go back to you and let's talk a little bit. I think you wanted to show us a couple more pieces of art. I want to give you time to do that, and then I'm gonna let
Sure.
people know
Oh, yeah,
how
I'll
to get in touch with you.
I'll keep it very fast. Can you see this?
Ooh,
Ooh.
what is this?
This is the super mutants from Fallout 4 with all their armor.
Uh huh.
So those are fun. That's an earlier version.
This is ZBrush. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, it's ZBrush.
This is
Looks like
ZBrush. So this is
Uh-huh.
a program that allows me to do such cool things. And again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, but this is the program that really got me into the industry, learning this and being able to mess around with it. I mean, I can't even tell you how much fun
Wow.
this program is. And you can just do such dramatic, fun things with it. I mean, you can change a character, so fast, right? Like you can just do so many cool things and really just have a ball. The moment I'm working, for anyone who's interested, I'm working on a Pluralsight course. Pluralsight is this online tutorial video training source. I'm bringing people through the character art pipeline. And now it's not so much, I think you'd be interested in this, you guys, because it's not a technical workflow. It's a artistically driven workflow. So we talk about a lot of the things we talked about today: contrast, color, character design, anatomy. This is our test subject. He's called the Grogan. He's a giant amphibian brawler. And I essentially take this from the concept stage where we paint it in Photoshop to the reference stage where we kind of examine what's out there source-wise and what we want to maybe emulate or borrow from. And then we take this through the sculpting stage from the very first lumps of clay to this refined sculpt, and then through the texturing stage and get it ready for whatever game it's going to be on. So this, right now, this is 16 million polygons. Most computers cannot compute that in a game. You want something closer to 10,000 polygons. So I run through that process as well. So
So you have to down convert it.
ZBrush, I'm sorry?
You have to down convert from 16 million down to 10,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so you have to be really smart about how you do that. And then then I color it and all that. So if people are interested in character design and character theory, keep your eyes out. That'll be coming up.
Okay, so questions
other
for
than that-
a couple questions about your new course. First of all, how much is it going to be, and when does it launch, and what is the name of the site again, please?
Okay, the site is called Pluralsight.
Plural site, like more than one plural.
Yes, more than one site, exactly. And the course itself, if you're a Pluralsight member, the course itself, as I understand it, is free. It's just you have to be kind of on the website.
I see.
There's a lot of different amazing concept courses on there that are available, and so that's coming out, and it's going to be about 4 hours long, putting a lot of my artistic knowledge as it is into that. So hopefully people enjoy that.
Okay. And when did you say it was going to be?
that's
When
all.
are you going to be done with the course?
I'm aiming to finish the raw materials for it within this month, and then
Okay.
I mean, the way these things go, it'll probably won't get released, for a couple months, maybe February. But that would be awesome, and then join in, guys.
All right. Now, do you have an exclusive deal with Pluralsight?
I, I think they were kind to me when it came to working out the contract.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a bunch of authors on there that cover any number of topics.
Yeah.
And so it's fairly standard, but negotiate, baby, negotiate.
Well, maybe at some point, I don't want to put any pressure on you. Maybe you can do a course for us and we can do something together. But I'm going to put it there.
I mean, that'd be great.
Okay, it is right about that time. Man, you are so on the money. Look at that, you guys. It's 1 o'clock and we're going to wrap up the show. First of all, I just want to thank you, Jonah, for being on the show. And I look forward to having subsequent episodes with you and we can take a look at this art. I hope all of you guys that are joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch, you've enjoyed this. We will bring more artists like Jonah on the show if this is what you guys want. Let us know. First of all, be sure if you like this episode, smash that like button, hit subscribe for us. And I'm going to take us out and let you guys know how you can get in touch with Jonah. So here it goes. I mentioned before, I think he's on Instagram and on Twitter, but the best way to reach out to him is on Twitter at Jonah Lobe. And his website is johnahlobe.com. He has a unique name, so it's consistent throughout all his social media. That's awesome. And I think, let me get go ahead.
Except for Instagram. On Instagram, it's I am Jonah Lobe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am Jonah Lobe.
I am Jonah Lobe. You know what? I think I signed myself up for Instagram years ago under Jonah Lobe, and then I locked myself out because I forgot my password. So I am Jonah Lobe.
You locked yourself out, huh? Can't you recover your own password?
I think once I got into it, I was like, well, it's too late now. I am Jonah Lobe. I am Jonah Lobe. That's just what I am.
All right.
But on Twitter, it's just Jonah Lobe.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're going to sign out right now. I'm going to start playing the music. Here we go.